So, Amit, Avish, yesterday I met a interesting founder who's trying to solve for the repairs of truck at the transport hub. The current problem that is there is either the fleet owners get their truck service at their own service centers, which are like slightly away from where the loading unloading happens, or they get it repaired at a company service center, which is pretty expensive for them because when the company is servicing the trucks, they're charging for almost everything. They're trying to increase the bill value in whatever ways. Or the third alternative that they have is getting their trucks serviced at a neighborhood service center. But again, this quality of service there is pretty questionable. There have been multiple instances where the neighborhood guy is trying to uh, cut cut corners on the service, making sure that they make money and they don't really care about the uptime of the truck. So from a fleet owner's perspective, they're struggling with making sure that the uptime is high. So this guy comes in with his experience in working in Spinny and Bounce, and now he's trying to solve for the basically making sure that the trucks are serviced at the place where they are loading and unloading, and in a way they are able to guarantee to a fleet owner that their trucks will be serviced at the minimum amount of time. So right now the tag for getting the truck service is pretty high. He's trying to reduce that tag by making that service mobile, by creating a mobile service van which goes to a truck and the truck doesn't need to come to our service center. That is one change he's doing. And second, he's trying to create a hybrid between a neighborhood service center and a company branded service center. So that's what his positioning is. What is helping him is his experience of working at Spinny and Bounce. At both the places, he was working at ops teams. That's what he's trying to solve, creating a kind of a hybrid structure between a neighborhood service center for trucks and the branded service centers.
So, Vishal, are they focused on service or repair? Because these are two slightly different use cases.
So I think somewhere he would start with scheduled services, but eventually he will want to get access to that telematic data as well, which will help them predict which trucks actually needs repair. Because right now, if you look at it, the way e-commerce have evolved, everyone wants predictability in the tag. So right from delivery to Amazon to anyone who is using these trucks, they will want to be able to for the exact tag for their deliveries. And hence they are putting pressure on the fleet owners to give them guarantee that the truck will not break down. So if a fleet owner has to give that kind of a guarantee, they will have to make sure that the trucks are serviced well, so that there are no chances of truck going kind of breaking down in between. But also make sure that someone is sitting there predicting when the truck will actually need repair, so that that repair can be done beforehand, even before the truck starts for that journey, so that the brand, with either the delivery or the Amazon, they feel more confident that the delivery will happen within that.
Got it. So, what I like is, I think the company or the founder realizes that they're thinking for their client. They realize that the client has a very tight timeline to deliver. They cannot afford a downtime. And so their solution is kind of geared towards ensuring that there's always uptime. How they're doing it, how are they able to get to know about it sooner? Because see, if the truck has already broken down, then it is repairs, and then how can you be at the same place is a harder problem statement. And for a new company, they may not have their service centers where the truck has broken down. So probably I think they're doing mobile vans, and that kind of helps. But how are they able to predict that this truck will break down?
The base model is that they will be stationed at the transport hubs. So places like Bilaspur, places like Manesar, where there is a lot of entry and exit of trucks. And typically those, at that before and after the entry exit, those trucks are parked for loading and unloading, right? So their first step that they're taking is their scheduled maintenance or service can happen at these places itself. The second step that they're doing is that in talks with the companies which provide telematics to fleets. Some players like Loconav, there's some other players who are currently selling telematics data to fleet owners. Right now, the problem is none of the fleet owners are really equipped to understand those telematics data. So they are not actually taking action based on it. So these guys will come in and say that, hey, why don't you pass on all the telematics data to me? And then, basis that data, I will keep a track of which truck actually needs repair. And if a truck can actually come back to the transport hub, then the service actually or the repair happens at the transport hub. Otherwise, if there is a high probability of truck breaking down in between, then they will figure out once they become pan India and they have presence across the nation, then there will be a mobile van which will go to that location where they can get the truck to wait for some time and service the truck. So obviously, this will take some time. This is still in future. But initially, I think the first sales pitch is that get quick service for your trucks. What it means is least amount of downtime, and whenever you want the service to be done, that happens within 15 minutes. And how they're doing it is through a mobile van, which is specially designed for servicing trucks, so that they're able to carry enough amount of inventory in the mobile van to make sure that service happens perfectly, and there are no issues at there.
Yeah. So I really like the here and now aspect of it. That I want the service here, so you have to be co-located somewhere, or the mobile van is reaching where the service is required or intervention is required. And now is when kind of either when the truck is being unloaded or loaded, so it is idle, or it has broken down. So at that particular moment is when it is most needed, and they don't have to wait. And that also increases the propensity to pay for the clients also, because otherwise they will be incurring huge losses by through what we call demurrage in shipping, or the truck is being idling when it should be moving. But they're trying to preempt. If they do a very good job of preventing it, then there is very little repair work required. So how does that tie in? Because the better job you'll do in predicting and preempting, the lesser your business opportunity will be. So I like the idea that they are upstream and they're at the top of the funnel. But at the same time, they do a very good job of being of what they're supposed to do when they're upstream. That will not lead to a lot of business for them, right?
Right now, they're starting with an AMC model, wherein they are telling the fleet owners that, hey, you are anyway spending X amount of money every year on your repairs and maintenance. What if you can give that X amount of money to me as an AMC, and I will make sure that, or they will work out the pricing accordingly, but their guarantee is that I will make sure that your running time is the maximum. You are able to run the truck at almost for the entire year without any issues. Because one of the stats which the founder gave was, for every day that the truck is not running, the fleet owner actually loses at least 10 to 15,000 rupees. This is not losing revenue; they're actually losses, because they have to pay their EMIs, they have to make sure a bunch of things have to be taken care of. 15,000 is a typical loss for every day that cannot work.
So the inventory is truck days, right? So how many active truck days they can have? So they can buy the trucks, but if they don't have the truck days there, they will lose money for sure. But see, so what AMC solves for is that the incentives are then aligned. That they would want to kind of trucks, if they've already paid for AMC, then they would want to reduce the number of downtime days or whatever, and that works for the client, that works for them. But AMCs have been abused, have been missold, and they are actually a push product, because anything that is giving value to you tomorrow, but you're paying today, somehow becomes a push product, be it insurance, be it gym memberships, and they have to be sold differently.
I think that's also similar to what we are seeing in SaaS, right? So whereas all SaaS is now being criticized for, okay, you're not outcome oriented, and it's just those bills are starting to balloon. So I think more in SaaS also there's this push on more outcome oriented pricing, and maybe there's something here as well.
Yeah, my point was that it is a push product, and they're hard to sell. How do you build a big company when your product is actually a push product? It becomes much harder over time, right?
My sense is, see, as long as they're able to deliver on their two core promises, which is one, the highest uptime for your truck, and B, the quality of service, which is better than what you get at a neighborhood service center, and also doing it at a price which is much lesser than the brand service center. If they're able to do these things, then the fleet owner will definitely want a service which can give them peace of mind.
Okay, let me ask you
what they're building.
So, should they be starting with AMCs, or should they be just, because AMC is a bigger decision, longer term commitment, and that's a harder sell versus, oh, I'm here, your truck is here, let me fix it for you, which is a much simpler transaction, right?
I think AMC is a long term bet that they're building. Right now, they're starting with a on-call mobile van solution.
Makes sense.
Which is the easiest start. They have some connects with the fleet owner, and they just want to tell them that, hey, whenever you want a quick service to be done at transport hubs, when the trucks are actually loading and unloading, we get it done for you. And so, in a way, making sure that quality service is available at the least amount of time.
Yeah, I think that's a proposition which can easily be sold. AMC is like, maybe my consumer bias is coming in. As a consumer, when I look at someone selling me AMC, I feel like, okay, maybe it will not happen. Maybe my microwave will not misbehave. Maybe it will just work and I will pay AMC for nothing. Or my car will be fine. Or maybe, I don't know whether they'll be available when I need them and all those things. But someone who's running a fleet, and that fleet is supposed to be doing that thing every single day. So it's the truck is running every single day, probably to the extent possible. And there are so many trucks. So the question is not that, if the truck will break down, or the question is when it will break down, or which truck will break down and where it will break down. So they know very clearly that this breakdown is a part and parcel of doing this business. The question is how well they address when it happens. How quickly are they able to kind of make the corrective measures and get the truck running again. So there would be that willingness, which is very different from the AMC willingness when we look at four-wheeler AMCs that are being sold by the dealerships. Actually, what I also like is when the founders slice the opportunity in a new way. So we all know service centers are an opportunity, but the founder decided to go for trucks. He was doing Spinny, which was four-wheelers, doing Bounce, which was two-wheelers. So he said, no, I need more wheels, maybe six-wheelers or eight-wheelers or 10 multi-axle trucks and all those things. Probably because the ticket sizes are different. Probably the problem
That was the prime reason for him to choose truck, because he realizes that the ticket size of service in commercial vehicles, especially trucks, is very high.
Yeah. So one
of the points let me see some difference here is the fleet owner actually is running the truck on almost like a 365 days for the year. So they understand a typical 5-year-old truck, how much is my maintenance and repair cost for the year. So they have a very good understanding of that. And if someone can solve for that pain point within the same amount of cost, they will be happy to give away that kind of a pain to someone to come and solve it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think when I was saying that, AMC is a push product because my value is in future, I'm paying in advance. I think they know it will happen. So even if it is, and for with 20 trucks, some truck will break down next month also. It's not too much into the future also. I get that point. But coming back to that point about slicing the opportunity. So I like the idea that forget about two-wheelers, forget about four-wheelers, go after the multi-axle trucks and the big trucks. Also slice it not like, okay, Delhi, Mumbai, Gurgaon, whatever. Like, okay, maybe this is the highway. This is the belt. And a lot of these fleet owners focus on a certain route. They're not pan India. So while so there's some talk about pan India, they don't need to be a pan India player to deliver their full service, full offering. And typically these would be standard routes. Like Delhi Mumbai itself is a huge opportunity. And then if you are at the right access points, probably you are a default partner for them, as opposed to kind of doing, because these guys are also not running. They don't have multi route or pan India kind of partnerships because they don't have that kind of business also. So this again, the slicing is very interesting. Also then focusing on being there, which is again a slice that, okay, it's not periodic service. It is like trying to solve for both preemptive, as in when, not like, okay, every first of every month or every 10,000 kilometers or 100,000 kilometers. What I'm saying, okay, now you are unloading or loading, you are going for a long trip. There have been 10 trips where you have not done it. So maybe now is the time. So that the difference, it could be 10,000 kilometers versus 9,500 today or 10,200 today, tomorrow. But it is like understanding what the consumer needs, what your client needs versus what you are offering, which also is there's no change. It's just the how you're messaging that also changes. You speak your customer language in that sense. Reminds me of this conversation I was having with Pulkit yesterday. Pulkit, as we know, is a founder of Battery Smart, which is scaled to like they have $100 million worth of battery storage now. Like because they're the biggest battery company in the country, the biggest buyers of battery in the country. And I know Pulkit, like we know him from Shuttle Days and all. So I like the slicing. I was somewhere talking about with EV cars coming in, is that also an opportunity for these charging stations? Like Static is doing it. A couple of other companies, ChargeZone is doing it. So I like his response that he said, no, I'm not interested. There's a utilization is an issue. You have to have pan-India footprint and still your utilization is much lower. I'm very focused on these e-rickshaws or autos, which work in a very e-rickshaw, especially work in a very hyperlocal area. So there, if you know that there's a micro market here where e-rickshaws are applying, they would need charging somewhere nearby, and that's where I'm there. So my customer is there where I'm where my customer is. And for two-wheelers, again, he's doing the same thing. He's serving those gig economy workers who are also like those Zomato, Swiggy, Zepto delivery boys who are using these electric vehicles, now two-wheelers, to do these deliveries. They also have these hubs. Those could be near dark stores. Those could be near your restaurant. There are a lot of restaurants are there. A lot of these folks would be standing there waiting for the next order. So again, it's about, one is, there are two things, this similar approach in these. One is you're closer to the customer and trying to be, where they are and trying to be available, but also slicing it. So this is an obvious answer that if I'm catering to, Zepto gig workers, then I might as well be close to their dark store. That is a very obvious answer. Everyone will come to that answer. But before that, the question that was asked, and which is what led to this, is should I care? If I'm getting into two-wheelers, who should I go after? How should I slice my opportunity? And because we all are fundamentally consumers, most of the founders gravitate towards these consumer opportunities, which becomes a very different business. In some cases, those are the right opportunities. Some cases, those are not. But a lot of times, these businesses offer you these kind of aggregation points. Now, you don't need to be everywhere. You just you know where your next hub would be, your charging hub or whatever your service hub would be, and you just get one set right, and then it's a replication game. And these guys will come and tell you, oh, why don't you kind of put the truck here, your workshop there, because I have a lot of trucks there. And somehow, kind of all those wrong decisions that a consumer company will take, which is anticipating demand and looking at some data and imagining that this is how this new highway people will converge, and all. A lot of maths is required to get to that right number. Here it is a lot more simpler because the demand is already aggregated. So I like this kind of a slicing approach. How you're slicing the market totally changes the opportunities, and the founders who are able to do it are able to build business with a lot less capital, and maybe potentially a bigger business also when they do that.
In fact, the difference is similar to what Go Mechanic does versus what these guys are trying to do. If you look at Go Mechanic, they were after the consumer use case, because people who own cars, they will want to get them service. So the challenge is, when you go into a consumer business, CAC becomes a big variable because you're trying to acquire every user, and the use case is very limited. You will probably need service once in 6 months, probably. Not only that, so your CAC to LTV ratios are also very skewed. In this case, while he is going for a regular use case, because trucks are running, commercial vehicles specifically, they're running throughout the year. So the need for service, need for repair will always be throughout the year. And second thing is, because he's focusing on commercial vehicles, and you know where these commercial vehicles will be available. Like, for example, when you're talking about battery smart, the three-wheelers that you're talking about, they are all running on particular routes. And if you can figure out the right routes where the demand for these e-rickshaws are very high, and you can create battery swapping centers at those routes only, those specific places where those three-wheelers can come in and get their batteries swapped. Same thing with this guy, where if you look at it, every city will have a transport hub, because trucks typically do not enter city areas. So those transport hubs will be somewhere outside the city, where all things related to transport will happen. All loading, unloading will happen there. So if you can strategically position yourself in those transport hubs, you don't have to spread yourself too thin. A Go Mechanic will probably need hundreds of service centers within, say, Gurgaon or Delhi NCR. But you can still serve Delhi NCR with, say, probably 5 or 6 centers, probably a Manesar or a Bilaspur or some couple of other
Exit point, entry point.
Delhi, and you're done. You're done for Delhi NCR.
I would say that, so it shouldn't look like that B2B opportunities are better opportunities, B2C are not. There's a CAC, but over time, if the LTV can be established and you can build a much larger business, it totally makes sense. But there are other insights also, yes. Like when it is a B2B business, you have to be closer to the revenue. Now, what we talked about, if you can reduce the demurrage, if you can reduce the downtime of a truck, you are actually immediately impacting their revenue, you're impacting their costs, and you're impacting their profits. So there is a real case there, and that's what creates that pull. Somewhere, consumer businesses are more about pain and status. Are you giving them, solving a problem for them, or you're kind of making them feel good? And they also, like, some of the largest businesses in the world are consumer businesses. So like G used to be a large business, but now if you see all the big companies are like more consumer facing, all opportunities exist. What I also liked was like if you compare these guys, going back to the charging problem statement, the two-wheelers, these gig economy EVs, the three-wheelers, the e-rickshaws and the autos and all, they're out there to make a living by running that vehicle and doing that service. They cannot do this, and maybe at some point things will change, but they cannot charge at home during the day. Maybe that's an interesting question. That there, if the batteries get better and the range increases, then maybe you don't need these kind of charging infrastructure. You can charge at night through slow charging, which is what all the consumers who have four-wheeler vehicles or even two-wheeler vehicles do. They only need these chargers, the fast chargers, on a road trip when they are away from their homes or in some emergency situation. Otherwise, all of them have the charging at their home. That is, especially two-wheelers, is very easy. Four-wheelers also, a lot of people have it.
Another interesting point is when I was speaking to this founder about the service center thing, I was able to draw a parallel with the founder who's building neighborhood hospital. So if you look at it, the problem statement is pretty simple. So there are two options available for a consumer. They can either go to a neighborhood hospital, which is low on quality and low on price. And typically, they don't serve all problems. They will probably be focused on one specialty, right? Or you can go to a very high-end branded hospital where the quality of the service that you get is very high, but the price is also very high because the entire hospital is very high on capex probably, and hence the price that you end up paying is also very high. I think there is a space for a very efficient, well-run neighborhood hospital, chain of our neighborhood hospital, which is able to give really good quality service at a price point which is probably higher than the neighborhood hospital, but much lower than the brand hospital. And these guys that we spoke to, they're trying to build that. So effectively, it's a similar thing that what the truck guy is also doing, trying to create a hybrid between neighborhood and branded. And the hospital guy is also saying the same thing. Can I create a hybrid between a neighborhood hospital and the branded hospital? So it was interesting that I was able to draw some parallels between both the models.
There are some interesting opportunities when you go back to the drawing board. Suddenly, you can look at the world very differently. And I'll give a few examples of this. So there are vehicles which are being built, the EVs, which are essentially ICE vehicles. Like let's say Nexon is an ICE vehicle. Now they have an EV version. It was designed with ICE as a thing. And then they say, okay, there's no engine here, so put some battery here and all that. So it'll work, but it is not, it could have been done better if it was born electric. Now there are other vehicles, like this one that came recently into the market, Windsor by MG. So it's probably a born electric vehicle. So the way they have done it, in the same length, they have created so much space inside. It is shocking. I have never seen a car which is this long, has so much legroom at the rears. And if there is legroom, then you will compromise on the boot. The boot is not compromised. So you're able to do all that because you kind of packed the vehicle differently. Where your battery will go, where your other stuff will go, is designed with electric in mind. So this is just one example of, kind of, if you go back to the design board, if you go back to the drawing board, you will think differently. Another example could be like a lot of these bundling and unbundling opportunities, like in shuttle, the buses were being sold as one bundle. Like if you are a corporate, you want to get a bus, we'll give you take the whole bus, give us the MG. In fact, we'll buy the bus for you. So that is because that was convenient for the operator. That is the only way they can offload their risk and they will have 3-year contracts and all. So a lot of constraints. What did we say that, buses are essentially a bundle of seats. So let's unbundle those seats and rebundle them as subscriptions. So we went and talked to the corporates and said that, okay, you want seats, right? You don't care about the bus. And we'll give you seats across different buses, across different routes. All you need to commit is buy a subscription. So it's still bundling, but it's a different kind. But we went to the design board and drawing board and then said that, okay, let's design it differently. Again, what this health hospital company is trying to do. They also went back and said, why are these hospitals, multi-speciality large hospitals, so expensive? Why are they losing money on certain surgeries? They said, and do we need to do those surgeries at smaller hospitals? So they work backwards in saying that, okay, if we don't do these complex surgeries, then we need a lesser OT, a different kind of a machine, different kind of a space requirement, different kind of staff requirement. And then we kind of build a new kind of a hospital from first principles. It'll come across very differently. And so that in a way, today we talked about two kinds of good founder attributes. One is kind of slicing the opportunity differently. That any founder has to do because otherwise everyone is well served at some level. So you have to slice it differently. And then, kind of, are you going back to the drawing board and saying, okay, with this kind of a slice, what is the right offering? Is it that, I have a mobile van? Is it that I have a 50-bed hospital in a chain of them? Is it that I have a subscription offering? Whatever it is, at some level, it is about knowing where the opportunity is, going after that market, and then working backwards and designing for that kind of a customer, that kind of a need. And that's how good opportunities keep. And then, obviously leveraging the latest technology and the best practices of the times so that you are able to kind of do it better than the incumbents. So if we look at it like this, there will always be opportunities in every space because there is some segment who is today being served by a model, by an offering, which was designed for someone else. And then you'll say, okay, why are you going there? I can serve you here like this. And then, you will serve for them. And then you will get some other, spillover from other adjacent markets. And you have a business at hand. The willingness to go to the drawing board and, slice the customer base differently. I think those are very important skills for founders. And a lot of times we get too enamored by, what has already worked and we try to create another version of that in a different geography. I think those opportunities we have run out of those opportunities largely. If it is pure digital, then, an Indian version is not really required. When there are ops involved, then we need an Indian version. But now we are quickly running out of those opportunities. So a lot of these are, have to be, there was a wave of founders who were like very good at execution, who were replicating the model which was elsewhere present. And they will just apply themselves to do it better, faster, cheaper, but not trying to kind of go to the drawing board. But now a lot of founders we are talking to, a lot of opportunities that are coming our way are founders who are saying that I look at the world differently. I don't accept this status quo. I want to change it. And I'm willing to kind of segment the user base differently. And I'm willing to kind of go back to the drawing board and design for that segment that I've, sliced. If you see what we are doing, is also a bit of that, right? There is there was an angel. Angels were always there, and a lot of products, very high quality products, exist for angels. But we said that no, we don't want to serve them. We want to serve people who are not served, who are bullish on tech, but not long on tech. And should the product for them be like the product for angels? Maybe not. So if you have to take it mainstream, you have to go beyond angels. That was first point. So we cannot build a product for angels. In fact, if we get too influenced by them, then we'll build a product that already exists and it will not work because there are better products or more established products that are already there. So we said that if you have to take it mainstream, it cannot be an angel product. It has to be a much more widespread kind of a product. And then we work backwards, design a product that works for them. So how do you solve for trust for them? How do you solve for quality of deals? How do you solve for conversion? How do you solve for distribution? How do you solve for just consumption? Or otherwise, most of these are work, right? Go listen to the pitch. There's a lot of work. So how do we reduce the work for them while at the same time the decision making is better? Give them more and more data points so that they can take better calls. Give them the control, but do all the hard work for them. So I think if we start thinking like that, if more and more founders think like that, we'll have better companies coming out because they're very clear about the proposition, they're clear about the segment, and then they're confident enough in their abilities to go back to the drawing board and come up with an offering that fits into this. If that happens, then we'll not have to worry about product market fit as much because the product is designed for a market that already exists and is wanting that product. Like this health hospital company, there's no question that there will be demand. There's no question in that. There is no question that a hospital will not work which is being run well. So those are not the questions. Those are big questions in a lot of other companies, but this is not a question, which means the risk is already kind of, because the proposition is clear and the demand is visible, a lot of risk is off the table while we are still at paper stage, right? So a pitch deck stage. So yeah.
In fact, when you were talking about Misfits, the same example that came to my mind is, see, right now there are two extremes which are available. One is your neighborhood syndicates, which are peddling deals to Indian investors. And then there is very high-end fund managers, which are running VC funds. But entering VC funds is difficult. Not everyone can invest 2 crores into this asset class. There has to be a hybrid or a space wherein you are able to get VC quality deals or VC quality diligence on deals, but still the convenience of a neighborhood syndicate. This is where the Misfit comes in. We are able to give you that experience of a syndicate, but a very, very high quality diligence, which is at the level of a fund manager. That's where Misfits comes in. So again, we were able to tie a bunch of things together. We started from that trucking example to what Battery Smart does, to what the hospital does. And finally, in fact, all of them are similar in a way. They're trying to create a space in between, which is not as premium as what it is right now in the market, but the service and experience is much better than what is available in the new world.
For Misfits, I'll go even beyond that I think the fund should be disrupted. The way they are structured is very different. The biggest capital pool that is available in the world is not institutional capital. Who do institutions sell to when the company goes for IPO? It's the people, the rich people of the country which are buying. When there were $10 billion of FDI money, which was FI money, which was pulled out of India in a month, who stepped in? It was the rich Indians who were kind of buying through SIPs or other instruments. So the biggest capital pool does not have access to the most exciting asset class. Why should that be the case? So it's a clear. So the funds are like ruling the roost because they kind of came in early. They built in structures. The regulations is around them. If you see, most of the regulation in financial markets is around what is the financial instrument? Is that instrument allowed, not allowed, regulated, not regulated, right? Here the regulation is around who can invest, which is prohibitive, which is not inclusive. So there is an issue here, which has created funds and which has made those funds bigger and bigger, which created an opportunity for family offices and people who can put in a couple of crores into a fund as a blind pool. Only they can access to this early stage, mid stage tech boom that we are seeing. But rest of us have to just use the products, love the products, believe in the products, be bullish about those companies, but not be long on those companies. That's a sad reality. Kind of we have been held back from an opportunity. The choice should be with the people. If they don't want to invest, that's fair. But why should the choice be restricted? And if you're saying it's a riskier asset class, then also there's a problem because directly they can invest into a startup on the cap table. And when do they get that opportunity? When it's a friend and family round, which is the riskiest of the riskiest situation, right? And they don't have a deal flow, nothing. So they're taking the maximum risk. And typically they're putting a big check because they will not get another friend who is running a company, who's starting a company. So they will put in maybe a few lakhs, let's say 10 lakhs. While typically they should be building a portfolio of 20 companies, they will never build a portfolio of 20 companies. They will take more risk. They'll be under diversified and they will lose money. They're just playing lottery while they could be doing things differently. So, and when you're going through AIF, then you are restricted. So if the restriction is on having exposure to an asset class which is risky, then you have allowed for the riskiest exposure and you have not allowed for a fundamentally different kind of an exposure, which is more diversified, which is more curated, and which is better done with other social kind of belief coming in, with a lot of other people coming and checking out. So it's weird, but the way the world works is not what is the right thing to do, what is the most obvious. It is always pathways, outcomes. Something exists that creates a situation of the next thing existing. And then someone will say, oh, there's a gap here, let's see this as an opportunity. But the primary thing is that there is an exciting asset class which is becoming bigger and bigger. Earlier, 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, we didn't have public market companies which were, you couldn't take exposure on public markets. That was not there. The companies that were there were Just Dials and Naukris, which are like decade-old companies, couple of decade-old companies, and which have not innovated. Like they're not, even Amazon is a 3-decade-old company, but it is innovating. It is at the cutting edge of technology. So it is still a tech company. Naukri is not innovating. Just Dial is not innovating. They're like not tech companies of today. So you didn't have that exposure, but now that is happening. But if there are 10 companies or 20 companies which are listed today, and there are financial institutions which are having exposure to them, there are hundreds and thousands of companies which are there below them, and a lot of them are very good companies. But we will, as individuals, will get an opportunity to invest in them once they go for IPO, which will be designed either to give exit to the people who came in early, who were the beneficiaries of this prohibitive landscape that we have created through regulation, or someone who got lucky into a friend and family round. That's about it. Or angels who do it who are well placed and have the right risk appetite to do it, but they're very few. But the entire wealthy people of India are being deprived of an opportunity of an asset class for no reason. And we don't talk about it because this is how we were born. This is the world we were born in. If today someone takes away access to public markets from the rich of the country, there will be a big hue and cry. What we have actually done, earlier companies used to IPO a lot sooner. We used to raise less capital. They would be valued much less, and a lot of upside will be there when they IPO. So it was still working fine. But over the years, what has happened is the IPOs have got delayed. Why? Because the public markets are so much stronger. Earlier, public markets were being used, IPOs were being used to give access to capital to these companies. Now they are being used to give exit to the people who came in early. And we are the folks who are giving exit to them as individuals. And a lot of times, a lot of value has been created beforehand. Zomato, I don't know if I'm wrong, I think they IPO'd at some $16 billion. Now they're at 25 odd, they went to 30 or something like that. But they went to 8 before that, and maybe lesser. I don't know when the stock was at 42, 43, what was the valuation. So there was a lot of hubris, a lot of optimism baked into that price. And people who came in at IPO may have lost money also. And Zomato is the biggest success story. And I'm talking about that. There are others where people have kind of definitely lost money when they came in at IPO. There is a lot to be solved here itself.